on the UNBSJ radio station. Thanks to Chris Wanamaker, who's here. I want to thank him very much. If you don't want to be broadcast, let me know and I can edit you out afterward. So it's July 9th, and I'd like to welcome you all to our summer edition of our WFNB Open Mic Night, the Writers Federation of New Brunswick. My name is Rhonda Bulmer, and I am WFNB's interim executive director. And I hope you all are enjoying your summer, the barbecues, beach days, and I hope most of all that you're finding time to write. So you've all been here before, so we'll go along alphabetically and 5 minutes per person to read. Before you begin, make sure to introduce yourself and tell us the kinds of things that you like to write, because you never know who's going to hear you on the radio. Without further ado, we'll begin with, because we're not all here, we'll begin with Danielle DeRoche. Danielle?
Hi, I'm new to this group. I'm actually new to New Brunswick as well. Just have been wanting to write. I've been inspired by nature and so it's my first time, so I wrote a lot and I don't think I'll be able to read everything, so I'll be able to maybe just read the first excerpt.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Imagine as you are reaching lots of successes in life, you start having false memories of a life that never happened, a life that ended abruptly with regret that some seem true but are not based on this reality, like a blip in time. Do you go in the direction of your false memories and risk everything, or go with your tried and true reality but without dreaming? Here's a modern non-lovey-lovey take on Pride and Prejudice meets Grease. She is standing in a room with two doors. The first door leads to dream number 1 and forever forget dream number 2. Or she forgets the first door and picks door number 2. She picks an invisible third option in which she tries to amalgamate the two realities, make her reality her dream. She somehow creates a third door and she walks through it. She wakes up. What a strange dream that was. She gets up and gets ready for the day. Except she's noticing tiny little differences. She knows this is her reality, but she knows it isn't. She suddenly has a strong sensation of being faint, and suddenly her memory becomes fuzzy and she falls to the ground. Luckily, she was around her family and she is brought to the hospital. She was in a coma for 3 days from her fall, they tell her. She had completely lost all her memory. She doesn't recognize her husband or her mother-in-law. They look nothing like what she knows and remembers. How will she get her memories back? She decides to learn about religion. Maybe Christians have the answers. Her husband thinks so anyways. She was having a hard time believing she was a Christian, but she likes what they say about being born again. In Christianity, they believe in being born again through the Spirit. That's like what she went through. She's like a brand new clean slate. So should she be with her husband she feels estranged from, or start all over with someone else? She tries to change her inner core, her inner beliefs. She tries to tell herself this is her husband. She tells herself they will learn to love each other. She wants to appreciate her new reality and be grateful, but she can't remember him. She doesn't even know him. Suddenly she remembers something. She has a blip. She thinks she's seen it before. It was a man she didn't know kissing her. She could barely see his face. It was a beautiful, desperate kiss, like a kiss that could wake up the ungrateful dead. But who was he? What was his name? Years passed. She learns to live the life she was dealt with. She has a baby and lives for her new baby daughter. She is happy and content. She starts a new job. She works as an administrative assistant. There she meets her new coworkers. She has a big heart and a positive attitude. They love her there, and she loves it too. She works there for a year when they hire a new person, that is. This new guy, Randy, is a tough guy. Used to be a police officer, but had to leave the force for personal reasons. He was the kind of guy you might think, was he a dirty cop? They've been working together for weeks now. She can't seem to work with him, and she complains to her manager. Please don't make me work with him. He talks too fast, swears too much, and thinks too much of himself. The manager says, I'll talk with him. The next day, he is visibly distraught, which is like most days. He just seems like a grumpy old fella. They share glimpses. He says good morning. That was the first time she heard him say that to anyone. She was so caught off guard, she didn't say anything back. She leaves it alone for now. She's got to focus on her work. Meanwhile, he thinks that was out of character for me, better not lose it. There was a project that she was working on for Randy, but she blew it. She made a whole mess of it. He brings her to the lunchroom and asks her sternly, "Why did you mess up like that? You're making me look bad and I need this job. Are you trying to get me fired?" "I'm sorry, but you frighten me. You make me nervous. I don't trust you. I can't work with you." He responds, "You can't work? You can't trust me?" And that hits home. He turns and walks away. The next day, something happens and he changes his behavior to her. Instead of talking fast, he speaks more deliberately. He's actually trying to let go of his bad boy image. In fact, it is making him do better at his job. He does this for a week. He feels elevated and lighter. She is making him a better person. He's starting to feel like he's on top of the world. But he can't keep thinking about her. She is married and he's married and they work together. He can't maintain it. He is a bad boy to the core. No use believing in the best of him. She's right. I'm not trustworthy. I'm a cheating scumbag and I don't deserve a good girl like her anyways. The 5 minutes are up. The end for now.
Thank you, Danielle. Is that the beginning of a larger project?
Yes, actually, I've been like toying around with ideas for a while, and I've kind of have so many ideas, and I kept writing and writing and writing, and then kept starting over, and that's where I got right now. So
I think that's the tendency for a lot of writers. Is I was always told that you should write something right through to the end and resist the temptation to write the same paragraph over and over and over again. But it's really hard to do.
Yeah. I know, you should see how many restarts I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Well, we'll should try to just carry it through the end and then go back to the beginning.
yeah.
You know, we used to have tickets in Alberta to the Alberta Baroque Ensemble, and the musical director used to say that Vivaldi didn't really write 200 concertos. He just wrote the same concerto 200 times. So, you know, it can happen.
Wow.
Yeah. That's cool.
Well, thank you very much, Danielle.
Yeah, thank you.
Elizabeth Fry-Romanian, you're next. But you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry. Yeah, I'm Elizabeth Fry-Romanian, and I joined the Writers Guild last fall, and I've attended a few of the open mics, and I think they're great. So I write poetry. That's my only genre, and I'm going to share with you 5 poems, but they're pretty short, so I don't think I'll go over the limit. And they're summer poems. I don't always stick to the theme, but I just happen to have, I didn't realize until I began to think, oh my gosh, I really do have summer poems. So I guess I think I write more in the summer. I don't know. So the first one's about my dad. It's called Dad, Summer 2014. Tomorrow I will be leaving home, but now I watch you through the window of the front door, beige support socks pulled to your knees. You're holding on to the railing with one hand. In the other hand, you hold the garden hose, all-encompassing hands, cooling the garden off in the evening heat. A mist envelops you, and life holds on to you. My dad is still going strong. Well, he's almost 100 now, but he's still alive. So next one is called Morning Dove. You are the true sound for her, the only sound of sorrow. Your song will not let her forget that life does not go on forever. You will not let her stop remembering. You seem to be singing to her of the ending. It's time to go. It's time to go. You are the only sound she hears of sorrow, but your wooing is all in vain. She will not give in to you yet. I hate to leap into August already, but this is a poem about August wind, and that's what it's called, August wind. August wind blows your summer memories away. blows all your adventures away. They are gone, yet you have to carry on. There was a time when you conquered all, you made a difference even to strangers, but now the fall is coming. There are just memories of camping in mountains, by rivers, by lakes, in the centers of cities, in the cold and the heat, sand in your eyes. But now the traveling is slowing down to a final ending. You have to go on without the summer, and you have to go on without that someone. Now August wind fills your heart with a sad longing. This next poem is called She Goes Out into the Game World, and this, just to introduce it quickly, before I had children, and I think the nostalgia in it is because I really wanted to have children, but I thought I had gotten to the point where that just wasn't going to happen. So it is a bit full of anxiety. She goes out into the game world. She goes out into the early summer night, into the elm tree street, the perfumed air pressing all around her. The children are playing, skins dusty and hot, mouths circled with popsicle juice, voices high-pitched angel bells. Now the mothers are calling their children from the leafy, grassy game world. Now it's time to go in for milk and crackers. It's time to go in and dream. Tricycles and plastic scooters left behind, anywhere, sidewalks, chalk murals, red wagons of dolls. She goes out into the early summer night, the elm trees slowly darkening, pressing all around her. And she wants her name to be called, to take her away from this game, becoming too real. Call her name now. And the last poem is, I'm ending on a positive note because this is about my daughter, and it's called Dandelions. Dandelions. In the sandbox, my daughter says, don't when a child leaves, and come so that a child comes in. She is happiest with 2 dandelions held tightly in one hand. And if they are dropped or forgotten somewhere, we must go back and pick 2 more. 2 dandelions. That is all that is required for her happiness. She says, I like dandelions because they are yellow. They are happy. They talk to me. Thank you. Hope I didn't go over the limit. I probably did, but.
That was wonderful, Elizabeth. Thank you. I love your
Lovely.
poems. Yeah, really
I
beautiful.
enjoyed reading. I really enjoy reading them. When you're writing, there's something always missing, but when you share, you think it's all worthwhile to, when you're sharing. So
Sure.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Jerry, you're next if you're ready.
Oh, I've got 3 poems, and this one is the one that's a summary one anyways. I want to go to a junkyard, strewn with hollowed husks of Sunday drives to church, first dates and shyness, maybe second and third dates too, less shyness and secrets kept from prying parents. I want to go to a junkyard again with the old shiplap garage that has a pot-bellied stove in the corner, mismatched chairs all around, pin-up calendars, and twin tanks for the acetylene torches that effortlessly slice through the stubborn angle iron. I want to go to the junkyard again, next to my parents' house, where George would pay for whatever scrap copper we collected at 13 cents a pound, so we could buy the newest Mad magazine and the kind of ice cream that had a gumball at the bottom. I want to go to that junkyard again, where George would give my mother half his yard every year to grow a garden where the earthy aroma of dill and tomato permeated the oppressively humid Winnipeg summer air, and the spray from the oscillating sprinkler refracted the sunlight into ineffable rainbow hues. I want to go back to that junkyard just one more time, but not for too long, as the garden has reverted to lawn anyway, and the burned barrels have all been taken to another junkyard somewhere. Scrap copper is well over $4 a pound now. We may well have been wise to hold on to some over the years. And the next one is called Whimsy. It's about my artistic wife. I just love her whimsy. Only some can see the possibilities in the everyday, the animate and the inanimate. Wires and stones become swirls of iridescence, and the broken becomes whole, but different. Beach glass borne to the shore by shifting tides, perhaps from a shipwreck long ago. A piece of a fancy whiskey bottle in the captain's quarters, from which the sun-soaked sailors could never have hoped to drink. Or refuse strewn overboard when no one cared about the environment, buffed and polished by the sands of centuries, waiting for a new life in the hands of the artiste. Faces and things, barns with expressions, sometimes with pointy German army helmets, others with the sadness of decay and uselessness, but almost always with two eyes that watch over the encroached upon countryside. Only some can see the elegance of a deflated balloon in the grass, spent, discarded, irrelevant, a remnant of a small town high school graduation, or once tied to a sign with directions to a birthday party. Nifty, nifty, look who's 50. Only some. And it's interesting that a couple of you have mentioned your fathers in poems. This one's about mine, but it's not nearly as how should I say it? It's not nearly as generous. It's called Fedor Ivanovich. Driving permits from late 1940s England and every license ever since. Insurance cards and even traffic tickets, just in case. A trade, exams failed, exams passed, first house, then a second, mortgages, but never for too long before being discharged. Invoices, bills and receipts, all marked paid, and the date paid too, as if to seal the deal, beholden to no one. Membership cards, personal histories and family records, travel brochures, though never to Canadian places, and poison pen letters. I was here, a paper trail of a life not so much lived as cataloged. Thank you.
Jerry, that was amazing. Thank you, Jerry. That was really good. I guess I didn't mention that our theme this month was Memories Are Made of This, so I really appreciate that. That's beautiful. Kathy, Mac.
Okay. Do you mind if I do a little quick screen share?
Go ahead, sure. I
Okay.
have to make you a co-host though, right?
No, I think I can do it. Oh,
Oh,
no,
okay.
it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Just change-
You can
Oh, I
just,
guess
The reason that I'm asking is because I'm part of this online exhibit slash anthology called Atlantic Vernacular, where the New Brunswick Craft Association and a bunch of New Brunswick poets were paired up. So I was paired up with a visual artist named Tammy McLennan, and I wrote a piece that I called Sunk in Thought, which is after 3 sculptures that she did of found objects from the beach, and she called it float devices. so I wanted to show you the pieces. Can I?
I made you a co-host, so you
Okay,
should be
so
able
I think
to
I
share
can
your
screen
screen.
share. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Screen share. Share. And now let me just find it. That's not what I want. That's what I want. Okay. So these are the pieces. They were the least narrative pieces that we were basically there were 26 writers and 26 artists, and all the writers were allowed to look at the art by the different people, the different artists, and choose one of them. And I looked at them all, and when I saw Tammy's, I went, who would choose that? But then I couldn't forget them. I couldn't get them out of my mind. I had a list of about 10 others that I thought I would use, but I felt like they were already telling their story. Whereas these ones seemed very open. So I wrote Sunken Thought, and it starts with a quote from a guy named Bill Brown, who wrote an essay called How to Do Things with Things. And he said that if the use value of an object amounts to its preconceived utility, then the misuse value should be understood as the unforeseeable potential within the object, part of an uncompleted dream. Okay, so I like that idea of things being used for things that the manufacturer never had an idea about. So this is a poem in 3 parts because there's 3 little pieces of sculpture here. But I'm just going to read the first part because I spent so long doing my introduction. So 1 is exchange value. Okay, so the 3 parts, there's 3 sculptures, but the 3 parts of the poem, 1's exchange value, 1 is use value, and 1 is misuse value. Exchange value and use value go back to Marx, and then this idea of misuse value is Bill Brown's edition. So I'm just going to read the first one, exchange value. It's a haibun, which means it starts with a prose poem, and then there's a little haiku at the end. Each section is a little prose poem and then a haiku at the end. I once coiled a stinking black rope after it unwound from the back of a truck along a couple of hundred of meters of road. A dried eel of a find I exchanged for some fish from the guy who said he'd lost it. Good bottom cordage to tether a cage where lobsters clamber in and out throughout the dim and the dark until it's lifted into the mythic empty. Gone from home into the unknown, maybe an infinitely baited heaven. Attributing heaven dreams to 6-legged, hard-shelled, greenish bottom crawlers, perverse. Do lobsters even think? Not about gaming their beds for gains, but we, soft, unbalanced, barely supported at all in the empty, we make lines to haul hand over hand or winch up to get at traps crawling with pairs of ragged claws valued by the pound. When ropes snap, economies collapse. Orphaned cages hunker, sand filled among beer and pop cans and the periodic solipsistic fluorescent gloves dropped overboard by those thick-knuckled fishers who, after years of bitter haulage, side-eye all shores, ruined by calculation. The price per kilo in liter, the cost of this worn cordage, that salt-stained trash, those other broken traps. Lobster wanders on stone and kelp, caught on flange and rope. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks.
Amazing. You can read more if you want. Do you have more?
Well, yeah, there's the second and third pieces, but
We have lots of time. We have lots of time. It's only 7:02.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well then if you want, I'll read the last 2 bits. Do you want, I'll put the screen share back up just because it's kind of fun to see the different pieces. Share, there we go. Let's look at the other one. Here, let's call this one number 2. I thought this one looked an awful lot like a skipping rope, except you couldn't really hold the handles. Okay, 2, use value. Some old clues end up found and unwound by kiddies, placed on sand castle walls, alongside shells and pebbles and bits of floats, then bid bye-bye when tide comes up and grown-ups say, let's go, kiddo. Some get tangled around boulders, handholds for older siblings clambering after rumors of sea caves, pirate treasure, after each other. Some repose among stones where adults come and go, fog thickening around them as they forage beach glass, maybe salicornia for supper, or umbilicaria for its purple dye that tints cloth with memories of salt taste and summer and things that can't be bought. Like this time you saw an otter, that time seals on the beach and the dog all confused. Other kinds imprinted in sand, deer and moose hooves, raccoon and bear paws, the peace signs of pitying birds, ponderous herons, and gulls, always everywhere in between. All the world's hooks fail to hang the lines, forsook in salt water. Oops. Oh, I guess we're going to see it like this. And then part 3, there we go. I thought this one, I just love this little detail. Tammy McLennan, the artist, has done jewelry and metalwork, so you can see that in her pieces. Misuse value. Managers at the cordage plant know some product will fetch up found ashore, sure, but none dreamed this length of orange nylon, when faded, might be end held by a scalloped doodad to define a drop-shaped, vag-shaped bit of gallery wall. Or visualize that yellow-flecked fathom of blue tangle, fuzzed with use and abuse, stopped with knobs just short of handles, as the abandoned jump rope it calls to mind. Or saw the other hank, turquoise cord, as plumb to a bob of warm, worm-rattled wood. Yet here they are, and are not those things they resemble, but their own things, unique each to each, despite their beached ubiquity. So who would deny mermaids, their songs sung to any of us, or that lobsters might dream of the empty? Bits of jettisoned junk offered up ashore may well meet their maker. Okay, so that's the whole thing.
That was great. Wow.
Thanks. Thanks. I'll stick the URL for the website in there. There's some brilliant poetry there and some really beautiful craft work.
Wow. That's a really great idea.
Mm.
To put words to something visual. It's really nice.
It was supposed to be an actual exhibit, and it was supposed to happen several years ago, but then
Yeah.
the pandemic stopped everything, and
Yeah.
they chose to do it this way. Yeah, so it's got the same problems and the same advantages that we were talking about this having, this, being online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks,
Well,
Jerry.
that's
Jerry
great.
said a nice thing in the chat.
Okay, next is Sarah Moshno.
Thank you. It's just so lovely listening to this. It's funny because I like to bushwhack with a dog, just walking through the woods, and I came upon something that stirred up some memories. So I wrote something, and then your email came in like a day or two later about what the open mic was, and I'm like, this is where this is going. So it was perfect. And I don't know if anyone's ever read Natalie Babbitt's Search for Delicious, which is it's a great children's book, but it's really a book for everyone. So I do reference that in here. I don't have a title, maybe A Mountain of Delicious, or maybe this is just going for my kids to read someday. Anyways, here it is. I hope it'll probably be a little bit over 5 minutes. So each spring, my family is drawn back to the Kingston Peninsula. My grandparents built a lodge in the 1920s halfway down the hill. It opens up to a meadow and remains off grid to this day. Down the hill, perched on the river, is the camp my parents built in the 60s. Mom doesn't remember hammering shingles and teaching her daughters to wash their jeans on the rocks along the shore. She doesn't remember that she has 4 children, that she was married, that every summer we siphoned water from a hand-dug spring for drinking, that we spent whole seasons of school vacations working on the road, raking it smooth from the washouts, chucking rocks, hauling fresh dirt or beach gravel uphill by the buckets like oxen, our shoulders grown too broad to fit into blouses and prom dresses. She doesn't remember the horses hauling cars and camping trailers back up to the road during the summers of unending rain. She cannot smell the incontinence slipping out by the drop fill, nor the fragrance of the wild rose from the meadow that I have picked for her and set in a chipped pitcher, white with a blue madras pattern reminiscent of a 1970s bandana. When a cousin returned from Vietnam and his hair had grown down to his waist, we made ice cream on the front steps of the lodge, churning with rock salt and ice between the metal pail and the wooden bucket, sweat dripping through our hippie bandanas and bobbing ponytails like melted cream down our chins. He told tales of watermelons grown in the marshy meadow, which I believe even to this day, but my mother cannot recount. Water is plentiful on Mount Misery. Holes are dug for springs, forming pools of fresh drinking water, filling with Natalie Babbitt's Delicious. Over time, lifestyles shift, the earth spills and migrates downwards, and the springs are abandoned or relocated. Near the far edge of the meadow, a natural spring is tucked between the alders and cedars. A hole was dug, and the water was gravity fed to the camp through a long black hose weaving through soft giant cedars. Dad dipped and poured into the hose with an old aluminum pitcher that he kept at the spring. It had a black plastic handle. Children would form a telephone line, starting at the first pour to the drip, drip, gurgle splash from the tap until it was a steady run of cool water. Is it there yet? Is it running? All the way from the kitchen until the answer would work its way up, an echoing series of yeses or nos, sometimes so loud a voice would be skipped over, and then there might be some pouting or running off if we weren't feeling useful. When the water was running, Dad would thrust the hose into the spring, clamping a piece of screen to the end. My mother does not remember manning the spigot below, so I tell her stories, and I think she believes me. I visit this old spring in my rambles through the woods, making homestead wishes on an empty purse, poking sticks into the mud, teasing the water upwards. In the 80s, our local jack of all trades put the fear of E. coli in us, convincing Dad to install a cistern to collect the water and keep the deer out. Machinery cracked alders, snapped cedar branches, and turned our spring into a gaping root canal. A cement cavern was embedded in the hillside, a fitted manufactured lid secured on top. We still had to siphon, but the gist was that the water would now be safe and plentiful. Today, we have a well drilled deep below the yard and a plumber that turns it on and off for a minor remittance. I came upon the old spring yesterday. I've been raking the road until the sweat beaded down the small of my back and my biceps stung probably all of 15 minutes. I took a break and headed into the coolness of the woods, bells ringing from belt and dog collar to ward off the bears, the rake transformed into a poking tool. I traipsed up through ferns and down the ragged forest slopes, the intermittent wetness giving away secret streams under moss-covered rock beds. I passed a rotting wooden base midstream housing the remains of an older spring, where as children we dipped water to fill my grandmother's large glass water dispenser, the spigot strategically placed slightly above the bottom to separate the silt from the potable. The spring is all gravel and muck now. I amble on and find places to scrape, teasing water to the surface for the dog to drink. I see a long black hose that feeds water to the lodge from a new spring. The blackness snakes through the trees for several hundred feet, running parallel to the steep driveway. I follow it uphill, stepping around congregations of ghost plants. I pass the new spring and cross the road, heading downhill, stepping over the rusted end of a collapsed culvert, while the dog runs uphill, following scents, real and imaginary, eventually converging at the meadow's edge by the old camp spring. The cement lid, persisting like a loyalist tombstone, rests on the mud, a rich brown against the green moss. Metal pipe sticks out about a foot higher than the spring. I strike it with the rake, asking it who it is, and it spits out dry rust. And in response, I strike it again. Why not? Across the cistern, I see the aluminum pitcher, handleless and full of mud, as if it has risen to the surface as an offering. I pull it towards me, convincing it with the tines of the rake, and it comes willingly. The mud dumps out with a few taps, and I carry it like a trophy back to camp. My memories are real. That is the aluminum pitcher. My dad hasn't seen it since the 80s. It's been in there for 40 years. There it is, no handle. Oh.
That's so interesting. Like we had a cottage growing up too. And we had, when I was really young, we didn't have a well. There was a hand pump that straddled the property with our cousins on the other side. And we also had an aluminum pitcher with a Bakelite handle. So that's quite a memory for me too.
Nice, very nice.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Change, right? And it's almost like it's bittersweet because you think that was a terrible idea. Building a cistern that ruins the spring. But then we can't really escape change, right? Every decision makes a change, and that's just what life is. So I'm loving hearing all of everyone's readings tonight, because that's really reminiscent of what life is like.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks, Rhonda.
Trent, you're our last reader tonight. Jane Timms isn't here, so.
Okay. Sarah, my cottage is right around the corner from Mount Misery, so it was really interesting to hear that.
Nice.
Yeah, I never go up there. It seems like the road would be too hard to get up, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'll have to do it next time.
Yes, absolutely. You can get up it 2 ways, but you just can't get all the way through.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem.
So I'm Trent Pomeroy, and I guess I write prose mainly. I do write poetry every once in a while, but none that I want anyone to listen to, I don't think. It wouldn't be worth listening to, but mainly prose and creative nonfiction and fiction. So I've got just a small flash fiction piece tonight. I stayed in the theme of memories, Rhonda, but not the theme of summer. So this is a fall piece, but anyway, it's called Hunting Memories. It's still dark when they launch the skiff and freezing. It takes 10 minutes to reach the blind. Gonna be a great day, boys. Uncle Darrell angles the boat into the reeds until the long grass surrounds them like a nest. I can feel it in my bones. Right, Sammy? Right. Sammy watches the men load their guns. His father hands him a 12 gauge. Careful to keep that safety on. Darrell rolls his eyes at Sammy and grins. The dawn is just starting to paint gray streaks on the horizon. How's about a spot of tea, Sammy? His uncle holds out a cup. Warm you up. That's okay. I'm not much for tea. You'll like this tea. Here, give it a shot. Sammy takes the plastic cup and swallows. The liquid sears his throat, and he explodes into coughs. What is that stuff? Darrell laughs. Just some tea. And a little Captain Morgan, his father adds. Don't tell your mother. Then the ducks are rising out of the marsh, and explosions are everywhere. There must be 3 other blinds nearby, all firing into the air at the same half dozen ducks. They stop to reload. Sammy has another slug of tea. It still goes down hard, but easier. Another flock comes into view, and they fire into it like kids at a carnival range. 2 ducks drop out of the air and hit the water a few feet from the skiff. Darrell punches his shoulder. You got one, Sammy boy. Great job. His father smiles at him. Pretty good for your first time. Darrell paddles to the ducks, hauls their black carcasses onto the boat. Calls for a drink, wouldn't you say? He produces a Mickey of Fireball whiskey and holds it out. His father frowns. He's a bit young for that, Darrell. Darrell snorts. Let the kid live a little. He winks at Sammy. Your dad was never much fun. His father looks at him, shrugs. Okay, I guess a little won't hurt you. Go ahead. Sammy chugs it, his head whirling. He can feel his throat trying to close against the liquor. For all of that, though, he feels good. Not cold at all anymore. Darrell grins. Sammy's getting into the swing of things. His father shakes his head. Be careful, son. That stuff can sneak up on you. They shoot 2 more ducks, have 2 more drinks, and then suddenly there's the crane. It ascends out of the marsh like an aristocrat, great wings flapping slow in the morning air, sedate, unhurried, fearless, the gun silent to watch it fly. Watch this! Sammy swings the barrel up and fires. It echoes like a thunderclap. They will never speak about this day again. Sammy will never hunt again, but this is what he remembers, the gunshot ringing in his ears, the crane collapsing like a tent, bones and feathers tumbling in slow motion from the sky. How it feels to desecrate such beauty, his father's expression as it falls. That's it.
Trent, you killed the crane.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It Fiction piece.
Oh, I didn't see that coming. Well, I know I didn't see that coming. That's wonderful, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. My goodness. Our next summer open mic is Saturday, August 6th at 6:30. And before you go, I want to share an upcoming opportunity. While I've got you here, our first fall writers retreat was held in November 2019 at Villa Madonna in Rothsay, and it was greatly enjoyed by the attendees, so we decided to do it again. But the date will be in September 9th to 11th. It's a bit earlier, but it's a nice kickoff to the fall season. There's a limit of 17 people. It's 2 nights accommodation, all meals, a nature trail to wander, and most of all, the time and space to write. So if you look for more information on upcoming InkSpot newsletter and the event page on our website in this coming week.
Can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
I was one of the people that went to that. It's fantastic.
Oh,
It's just really nice. All you're doing is writing on your own project. You decide what you want to work on, and you can decide whether or not you want to share the work in the evening or on the Sunday. But it's just really nice to be with a bunch of people who want to write. And then after a while, they get all tired of sitting in their rooms alone writing. So then you go for a walk with somebody. Like, it's just really nice.
Yeah, it really worked out well last time. This year, there'll be also a group of sculptors in the building for the St. John Arts Project. I think this is the last one they're going to do. They've been doing it for about 5 years. I think I was reading about it. So they'll be out sculpting all day and they'll be back in the evening. But that's a nice juxtaposition, right? That visual art and words. So I don't know what will come of that, but we're looking forward to this one. So thank you everyone for coming. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer, and we'll see you in August.
And thank you again for hosting.
Oh, you're welcome, Jerry.
Really quite wonderful to hear all these different forms of art. It's just amazing. Just amazing.
Welcome. Yeah, I agree.
I echo that. Thank you very much, Rhonda.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
See you soon.
Bye.
Take care,
Bye.
folks.